Fee and Abby and Emily, all like they came very prepared and they crushed it all. And I think that they're very well deserving. I think that Austin and Colton, again, very well deserving. I don't think there's anything in the testing battery that necessarily favored them enough to explain why they won. I think that those guys deserve to go. To look at what Colton has done in the WFP qualifiers, like I feel like that man has proven that it's not really about the test anymore. It's really more about like his ability to hold himself up regardless of what's tested out there. So
yeah, we're ready. All right, we're ready.
Mike, I'm glad you're back.
Thanks, guys. I'm glad to be back. I hate that I missed last week. We were in the mountains. I was winning a
competition. You don't hate that you missed it.
I was winning a big competition.
Oh, the tugboat thing?
Yeah.
We need a video of that.
Yeah. Just clip it in. Mike is,
all right, I will. I actually have a video of it.
Yeah. He's at like a little public pool pulling what are those little like dragon boat things on
public
a rope?
Pool? Or, this was a massive event with a live audience.
How big was that pool?
A pool. It was a huge stadium with pirate ships
and 10,000 people.
Biggest competition
cheering Mike on.
There's a
legend in his own
we were
mind.
in Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge area, and there's a pirate show that we took all the kids to. We had 4 boys under 5 years old. Me and the dads took the kids, and at the very end of the show, our server comes up. And she's like, hey, we're going to bring you and your sons down on the floor. And I was like, oh, my God, this is awesome. We got picked. And they're like, but we're going to put them like in a boat and we'll do some games. And I was like, cool. I had no idea what it was. And we get out there and they put a life jacket on Liam and his buddy. And Liam's like freaking out. He's like, are they putting me in the water? And I was like, no. And I didn't know. They still didn't tell us what the game was. And they put the kids in the boat and they've got pirates with them. And we're red team. And then there's blue team on the other side. And this is like one of those like medieval times type shows, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like packed, a lot of people there. And they put us at the end, me and the other dad, and they have a rope. And he's like, here, hold this rope. And I'm like, oh, cool. They're going to like pull or something to us. And he's like, all right, when we say go, you're going to pull the boat to you. And I was like, I've been training for this for years. I've waited for this my whole life. And I completely like blacked out.
Shove the other dad out of the way. I got this.
Yeah, sorry. Kind of selfishly, my buddy was like, what do we do? And I was like, just get the rope out of my way. And they're like, 3, 2, 1, go. And I'm just like, ah.
Like, dude, the boat leg lifted up. Legit.
The video is so funny.
Man, hold on tight.
I started pulling so hard, and I just wasn't even thinking. I just kept going, and the guy was like, "Stop!" Because boats don't have brakes, I don't know if you knew that, and it just kind of kept going, like slammed into the wall, and the other team's like maybe halfway, and I felt so bad because my other buddy was like, "All right, you got this."
Okay, fit guy.
I know. I texted Brandy later, and I was like, "I guess my bicep's good now."
I was gonna say, could you have gone even faster if you had the full bicep?
A bicep? I don't know. I didn't feel anything, but I texted her. I was like, we're all good now.
I have this picture in my head of you finishing and being like, yeah, turning to the crowd.
That was Liam.
That was a reality.
Liam flexed on everybody. That's my dad.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was funny, though. But
so there's our podcast, guys.
Yep. That's it. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, it's the biggest event of our week.
I'm just glad I didn't get injured again. So you guys just got back from Mayhem.
Yeah.
We ran age group and affiliate semifinals this weekend.
Busy weekend.
It was a very busy weekend.
You did a little bit of both.
Yeah. The Mayhem schedule was different than what I thought. I thought that we were going to end up going up there on Thursday, starting on Friday. So the fact that it started midday Saturday meant I could hang out here, try and help Dana, Kyle, Natalie, as much as I could with some of the age group stuff. So that was cool to be able to at least get them started here and then be able to head out over to Mayhem.
You did all Thursday and like the morning of Friday. Yeah. So like half of their execution day.
No, it was cool. I got to see Kyle do 3. I got to see Natalie do 2 of them, which was really, really cool. Watching Natalie do the Isabel one. I mean, the Isabel weight for her was 93% of her 1RM, and she smoked it and finished it in sub 9 minutes. Like that was just awesome to see.
I don't get
both of y'all's excitement afterward was pretty cool. You could tell it was a lot of hard work put into that.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time. It's funny because there's always round numbers that people hold up. They're either like intimidated by or they use them as like benchmarks for like what strength is. And like 125 snatch for her has always been something where it's like this milestone of like, can I hit it today? Can I not hit it today? We used to have to like trick her sometimes into like what weight was on the bar just so she wouldn't overthink a number that's there. Like if you see the blue plates on either side, or if you see double blue plates for guys on either side, like it can be intimidating sometimes. So 125 was always a number that kind of like haunted her. So to see her go out and smash that was really, really cool.
I was so impressed by that. Like just thinking mathematically, if you're like a 300-pound snatcher and you're trying to use 94%. That's minus 21 pounds. So it's like 270, say 280.
Give Travis 275 and tell him to do it 30 times.
Zero chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 10-minute window.
He's going to take that as a challenge.
Yeah. You can't do it, Travis.
I mean, I know that guys and girls are a little bit different. You can go back to neuromuscular efficiency and all that, but the number and the fact that she was able to do that and just conquer something that in the past would have been like almost like a nightmare style workout was just so damn cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. But that workout itself was so different, age division to age division. Like the percent for her and then seeing Kyle do it.
I know.
Like Kyle basically sprinting at 185 and trying to go sub 3. It was
I was judging Zach Powell, who's in the 35-39, and he was here on site doing the workouts, who's been in our compete program for like 6 years.
Yeah.
Him doing it at 215 and then hearing Kyle be done and like hit the ground, I was like, I had forgotten that Kyle's weight was 30 pounds less.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, he flew.
You turn around and like expect something to be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a very different workout.
This is actually something I'm curious to talk to you guys about. I am a big fan of graduated scaling for every division of masters. I think that if you look at even just scores of Metcons every year, there's like a 3 to 5% fall off when you go from like the open division into the 35 to 39. So I think, okay, that's cool and we should implement it more often, but it was very weird that it was like not uniform. It was like in that workout, it was
for every 10 years.
That's what I mean. In that workout, it was every 10 years. Then in some workouts, they just didn't scale it until 55 again.
Yeah.
So I was like, more like, oh, this is cool, and I think this is a step in the right direction, but like, why is it not for all the tests? And would you rather see that or rather keep it where it's just like, hey, 35 to 55 is just the same, and then there's scaling options after that, like from a long-term sport?
Yeah, I think I'd like the graded approach to be able to apply across the board. I think that it might change the style of tests, which they just have to give a little bit more thought to making sure that they're capturing everything they want in terms of testing fitness. Because like we've talked about the difference between Zach and Kyle in that style of workout, you're testing two very different things.
Yes.
But I do really like the graded approach because I feel like it was almost got to the point where the 50 to 54s were getting just screwed over because they're expected to do the same thing as the baby masters.
Yeah.
Which is just not realistic. And it's not the same style of testing. It feels very, very different for them. So it's either like on the other style of workouts, instead of just a weight adjustment, it could be a rep adjustment, it could be a movement adjustment, maybe not all the way to the point of scaled wall walks and jumping pull-ups, but I think that there is a way that you can do it, and I think it's probably going to make the competition maybe even a little bit more exciting and approachable for them so they don't feel super intimidated or just like know exactly where they're going to get time capped at.
Yeah, and from a participatory sport, I know our audience doesn't like golf that much, but one of the things that's really cool about a golf course is that there's tee boxes that just move up and there's handicap systems to kind of level things out. So it means like an average golfer who's like 50 years old could play a competitive match with a 25-year-old professional athlete in the sport and actually compete. And I think if you could do that and have some sort of real intelligent way of scaling the workouts, you could then have like 55-year-olds feeling like they're racing the 35 masters, not thinking like, well, I'm losing by 2 minutes no matter what. Like I'm not doing the same workout.
Yeah.
I think it would help too with just knowing how to train. So if you had this expectation every year that, hey, no matter what, if there's prescribed loads in the workout, it's always going to be a 10% or 20% drop, whatever.
Yeah.
You know how to train that versus like, all right, if I'm going into 50 to 54, I just need to max out a lot because like I have to have my top end strength up. Yeah. Whereas like the younger divisions, it's strength endurance related and lower percentages. So, I mean, maybe we're asking a lot with that, and I'm sure there's always context behind the choices.
I was more just like
the reason we're asking it is because it looked like it went well with how they graded it. So maybe it's something that we can try and expand upon.
Yeah.
So. Do you think that maybe comes from like essentially what they're trying to test? Like when I think about that, you've got this like endurance test in the row, shoulder to overhead, and they obviously didn't grade the scaling for that as much. And then you've got this power test in the Isabel, for the most part, like for like the Kyle Ruths, and I don't know what time Zach finished in, but the people who are like, you know, the 3 to 6 minute mark. Do you think that more aggressive graded scaling comes in to trying to maintain that stimulus versus like endurance stimulus? Like if I'm playing devil's advocate and trying to think about like the why, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're just guessing.
We're guessing at this point.
I haven't heard anybody who builds the tests share their thought processes, so I don't know.
I would say that it's important, again, thinking about the stimulus, because that row workout is not an endurance test based off of your capacity on the barbell.
Yeah.
Like you could have very, very weak shouldered overhead repeatability or even top end strength at that last barbell, and all of a sudden it doesn't matter what you can do on the rower.
You could be a world-class rower and take not
again,
last, but you're going to just get capped on the last bar. Just
it's
not
fine
moving.
if they wanted that to be about strength, though.
Yeah.
Or if you know there's a risk with this barbell, I'll pull back on the row. You're not truly testing someone's ability to express power on the rower. So putting a row at the end is an easy way to solve something like that. You know, you could reverse the order.
Depends
like
on
with a strong,
what
changes the test. You know, I get all that. So there's always like corrections or adjustments you could make. But what did you guys think? Just like general big picture. You guys talked about the workouts last week, right? Mm-hmm. All right. So what did you think? General big picture of how it actually went after the fact, like seeing it in action, seeing the choice of movements that they did, set up with us being on the floor and like actually running 10 people through somewhat of a very like professional feeling semifinal / quarterfinal style setup. What do you think?
Yeah, I still think some of the initial concerns that we had still apply. I think that it was funny to me to have the burpees over the dumbbell, and it was even funnier to watch it in person. It was like, hey, just go get a dumbbell out just to do a burpee over instead of just doing line facing with the line for the handstand walk or jump to touch the pull-up bar that you're using. So that one was strange, and mostly because it's like they went out of their way to make the standard murky. And I think that they should have just done something simpler floor plan wise and logistically wise that also would have been easier to judge instead of trying to think about feet going over versus around a burpee. Just jump and touch something.
Yeah, I hate that standard. And I watched and I was like, man, like if their judges are sitting and nitpicking every video of this, then like half of the field is getting a major penalty.
Yeah, it's so hard to do. Like the object itself is so small, it's almost impossible not to think about stepping over it, which is very, and especially in the second and third round when you're tired.
Or people are jumping and they're more than high enough, but because you're stepping up, your feet are slightly staggered.
Yeah.
The dumbbell's only like 8 inches long or something like that. If your foot is 12 inches long, the likelihood that either your front foot or your back foot is past the plane of the front or the back of the dumbbell is like very high. So I was like watching and I was like, how would you even enforce this? Like,
so I think that's just trying to think about the judging standards in general. I think we talked about it last time when we talked about what the thought process was with Will and when he was choosing his movements. He obviously had thoughts about how he wanted to test things, but he gave a lot of thought and effort into what it's going to look like and how to judge it, which I think is important.
Yeah.
The other thing with that test was I wish the handstand walk was a little bit further. I mean, the numbers were one thing, but I think that 30 feet versus 30 burpees and 30 toes to bar and 30 pull-ups, which gymnastics density is one thing, but I think a handstand walk could have gone a little bit farther and maybe had a little bit more play.
Like
so
potentially increased distance per round at least.
Yeah. So I
30,
watched
60,
that
90.
one. That was like the reason I brought up the question is because like the rowing workout and that workout specifically, I feel like would have been very good with graded gymnastics. So you say, okay, in the 35 to 39 division, you're going down and back twice and they got to be unbroken. That then makes the handstand more of an equivalent amount of time to the other movements where like 30 feet of handstand walking for a 35-year-old that's just coming out of the main division is literally just like,
It's a big separator is the walking lunges.
Yes.
Okay.
If you step false, man, legends never die.
Yeah.
They're both 30 feet too.
Yeah.
I was seriously watching this workout for the young masters doing it, and I was like, it's the same thing.
It's the same.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. But that being said, I watched 50 plus people do it, and then I was like, oh, okay, now it's a separator.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was like another one of those programming things where it's like, all right, cool. If we're gonna say handstand walking is a skill that the masters need to have, well, if you're just coming out of the pro division, then maybe there's an amount that's like a workout needs to include 300 feet. And then it like drops down by 50 feet per division or something like that.
Well,
because
if it's 90 feet for 35 to 39, which is down and back 3 times, and then 60 feet and then 30 feet, it becomes, like you said, a graded exposure. Whereas, I don't know, when I look at a workout, I'd like to know that all the components are equally, well, as close as possible, trying to contribute to what the separation is going to be. And that was my big takeaway with that lunge is like, it's in there. I get it. It might make the workout feel a little bit differently, but I don't see it as like contributing to where their separation comes from. So that was my only. Like,
Sorry, you go.
No.
I had a conversation with Ryan yesterday about those lunges, and we were saying like, you know, the 30 feet was nothing. Like I had Lisa do that workout with you, and she was 12 seconds or something like that to do 30 feet. But I suggested that like maybe it could be a longer walk, but at the same time, that actual 15-foot length now becomes easier for people to do, right? Verse 25. So one of the things I said was like, maybe that's the graded exposure. Yes, it gets longer, but the length that you actually have to walk becomes longer.
Yeah, it'd be hard floor plan wise.
Yeah, those would be the things. I actually, because we were saying, he asked me, what do you think about the 15 feet? And I was like, well, it's small. From a floor plan perspective, I actually kind of understand it because now it's easy to film. Like 25 feet is really annoying to get into a frame.
I think that was a good move overall.
Yeah,
going to 15-foot sections this year. I think that was very helpful.
I agree. Yeah. I think that it needs to
smart
in online qualifiers. Like we have a big gym relative to most gyms, and it's still a pain. So I would say that in online qualifiers, I'd rather 15. Yeah. But I just again, like you're saying, hey, this is the top 2%. Best athletes in the world in 35 to 39. There's pull-ups, there's toes to bar, there's burpees, all of those. Each one of them was a meaningful separator. I'd say maybe the pull-ups a little bit less, but toes to bar got people, burpee speed got people. I don't think there's a single person in the field of 5 to 39 that was like, man, that workout was just bottlenecked by handstands. So, or handstand walking. So, I mean, that was, to me, it was like, oh, this is kind of weird. But there was 50 to 54, 55 to 59 where I was like, oh,
yeah, the
now it really matters.
Was very challenging.
Yeah. So again, it was just one of those things graded wise I didn't really necessarily like. We did mention too the no squatting. And I feel like Isabel ended up being a lot of squatting for people. Not that that's testing squatting, but I thought it was like an interesting way that you could say it really benefits people who are good at power versions of lifts that have strong hip capsules that are not as mobile. But it's kind of a good way if you make something really heavy to say, sure, you don't have to squat, but like you kind of have to squat at some point anyway. Yeah. So I thought that was maybe an interesting, again, I think the sport, like online qualifier testing, needs to be thought of as a different programming constraint parameter system than in person. And I think when we get to in person, that's where people should flex more creativity. And I would lean more towards like, hey, let's make it a little bit more simple to execute, simple to film, graded for athletes, which maybe is a little bit complex. So there were some things in it where I was like, oh, this is definitely trending in a better direction.
I mean, I think logistically setting it up, the floor plans, the movement selection, it was way easier than previous years. Like not having rope climbs, not having wall balls, not having rings.
No GHDs.
Like all those things that, we complained about for a while. Not saying they
that's why I'm trying to give some positive.
However, but in like the squat, like you said, it could be tested or measured in a way where it's part of the movement, but it's not the standard. In a sense where like that pattern is there, but it's very hard and difficult to judge online, which we've seen historically year after year, where it comes down to a camera angle. Yeah. I just like what were some of the main movements that jumped out? I have a few that were part of it this year, other than the burpee, that will be difficult to judge. And I don't think there are that many. Like there were way more in previous years.
Yeah.
I think there's way more.
Like the lunge to me will be one that I think people will get hit on a lot, of how you turn around. You're trying to race. So the pictures show that you have to cross the line and then end fully stood up, but people can lunge over, bring their feet together as they're kind of like pivoting. So it's like, do you actually have to pause for that second, be completely facing away, standing completely upright, turn around, then come back, which is kind of a disadvantage on a workout where 5 seconds is a bunch of spots.
Yeah, that was that's
a tricky one.
Yeah, that's like one of those ones where I'm like, okay, this one makes sense if you put the standards in still frame images. But if this workout is a sprint workout where that component is going to be done unbroken, I feel like the movement standards need to show like, here's somebody operating at full speed and what's allowed. And if you if you want it to be where they stand up and their feet are completely parallel and they're facing one direction and they're fully vertical, then you say like, all right, well here the athlete is turning their foot a little bit to the side. They're still meeting that fully vertical standard, but it's not allowed because they've started to rotate back in the other direction. And those are kind of like the gray things that I feel like, all right, workouts come out on Monday, which was cool. Awesome. Thank you for that, for full workouts. But I feel like there needs to be some sort of judging, questioning process that goes back, and something like that should be clarified. Because if somebody started to like cut the angle as they're standing up a little bit, and then all of a sudden they get a major penalty on that sprint workout, like they're instantly out of the game.
So a few things with that. So you get no reps on a lunge, it's clear it's 15-second penalty. So if you get docked online on that workout, you're kind of screwed. Like
You're
if
out.
you get
Yeah.
a 15-second penalty in that workout, maybe even 2 of them, like it'll put you out. It'll push you out.
Yeah. What's 15 seconds over 5 minutes? Well, sorry.
Percentage wise, I don't know. But comparing that to the shoulder to overhead, where all the bars were weighted the same penalty of 3 seconds per rep, you get a no rep on a heavy bar at the very end, which, come on, let's be realistic. If you miss that last rep, let's say you tried it, you failed it, you missed it, but judge counted it and it's only a 3 second penalty, that's totally worth it. Like, you know, like that weight is not the same. So little things like that where I find some inconsistencies in it that I think will get better over time. But I really did like, and I was a fan of it being clear ahead of time, this is what the penalties will be, so that you can go in with an expectation, knowing, especially too, if you review the video, like we had a lot of people would say, hey, look, you need to redo that lunge workout. Like you had 1 no rep on the lunge. You can't risk 15 seconds on that. So I actually had 3 or 4 athletes I told to go redo it because of that.
Yeah, there's a couple things that, well, first of all, I think we have collectively provided constructive criticism or maybe complaining over the years of how things operate. And I feel like there was a lot of those changes made in that direction, and that was one of them where we're like, hey, make sure that there's a clear like punishment meets the crime type situation, which I love. But there's still like more to work on it, because like one of the standard things say, if you were doing a workout and you move on prior to completing the workout, your workout is done where you were. So like what happens if somebody got a no rep on one of the things and they technically moved on too early? Is that on them where now they're stuck back where they were, or is it on the judge? And like that just provides a real murky situation where somebody could have a completely invalidated thing because it just wasn't fully clear. And I think you need a little bit of that back and forth process for people that are like doing it to be like, hey, you know, this might cause a problem and this isn't really clear. Go back and clarify it for us. It's like every in-person competition, you do the briefing and like there's sometimes too many, but there's like 1,000 people like, hold on, what about this? Or, oh, you said this, but what if I do it like this?
Yeah.
It seemed,
go ahead, Matt.
It seemed like they were trying to almost say, because Amy was really confused about this. And I was like, it sounds like they're trying to say, if it looks like you deliberately cut reps or you don't attempt 30 pull-ups, we're gonna stop you right here. But it's like if there were 30 pull-ups and you got 1 no rep, we're okay. But because you attempted the rep. But as you said, like that just needs to be clearer. And I mean, they did send out that there was a form that you could fill in and ask questions, and they did publish those answers, and I read through all of them. And no one even asked about that.
It was a very quick deadline to ask questions.
Yeah, you didn't have a lot of time.
Right? It was like...
There were less questions than I thought there would be.
But I think that's fair.
Why.
If you're at an event, you have a briefing right there and you have to get those things done. So I think we have to be prepared to treat it almost as if it's an in-person event. I'm not saying that's perfect, but...
Yeah. I'm okay with that. It would just be nice to know in our planning process, like, hey, the workouts are coming out on Monday. You're going to have until Tuesday to ask questions, because then I think your level of like, okay, I'm going to get in, I'm going to read every single rule, I'm going to go out onto the floor and mess around with like ask Travis to come out with me during the age group and be like, hey, do this lunge and go as fast as you can and let me see what happens when you turn around, and like film things and be able to provide proper questions. And in order to do that right and really audit something, you need time. Whereas like, I feel like we get the information almost like, hey, the workouts are out. Ask us the question. So that just makes it hard to do that.
I am curious and excited to see if there will be any changes on the next stage to like the team and then the individual based off of like feedback that's been left or things they ran into. So
I'm encouraged by the fact that there was an attempt to like grab some responses and see what sort of feedback that they had. The other thing that I was going to say was I talked to Jules from AFJ when we were out at Mayhem, and she has
fitness judges.
Association of Fitness Judges.
I just didn't know if people would know.
We didn't hire them this year because the volume of age groupers that we've had in the past didn't get there. And so, but they were at Mayhem helping
we had 10 people here and we were capped on like the ability to handle that.
They were there helping the age groupers at Mayhem, and she was saying that their communication with CrossFit has improved dramatically.
Cool.
So the Association of Fitness Judges being able to see the workout standards, even though they're not directly like tied to them, they were able to have a more open lines of communication with them about certain standards and be able to get immediate feedback to be able to put into practice. So I think one thing that we could probably hope to improve upon is if AFJ is not inside the fence, they're still outside, there's something like camps can contract them to come in. It would be really cool to have those open channels made public as well, so that everybody gets access to that information. I think that would help a long way just to clearing up things and making sure that you are getting the fittest to the next stage and not getting unnecessary penalties.
Yeah.
So if those conversations are happening anyways, just make that publicly available. And then the other thing that I would say we'll probably talk about it here in a second, is the video review process with what it's going to look like going forward and how they're going to try and red flag things. Is I do think that it's important, if you have an association of fitness judges that everybody says like they're unbiased, they're going out of their way to making sure that these people in front of them are upholding the standards. I almost think that they almost don't even need video review. Like you can make those videos public, but the fact is like we should trust these people who we trust at the on-site competitions to be able to do the job in front of them.
Yeah.
They should do the judging. Right? Like the current judging is anybody that takes the advanced judging course.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
It should be I would think it should
No,
be
it's the online judges course.
Just the online one.
Yeah.
the online judges.
Just the
just the
first
normal
level
standard
one.
one.
Yeah, standard
Yeah.
ass judge
So
course.
I mean, no system is perfect. And I think I'm becoming more like less wanting to give public criticism about things and more wanting to just have private conversations about how to make things better. But there is an aspect of the current system that is like, hey, it's definitely a huge step in the direction that the videos have to be public and people can comment on them. But there's a lot of bias if it's just anyone that takes the judges course, because it could just be somebody who's in 40th place out there who's trying to get other people's videos invalidated, just going in and being like, needs review. So without some sort of checks and balance to that level of bias, I think it's not yet, like, I'm very happy it's a step in the right direction that it's happening, but it's not yet professionalizing it. I think it needs to be the judges, or maybe you put it on the athletes where you say, hey, in order to come into this competition, you have to be part of the video review process. You are going to be independently assigned 10 people from a different division than yours to go in, and you need to watch the video and review it, and that's part of your process. But that is another nightmare because people just won't do it.
Like I don't know if the athletes, if you can ever make them sit
so
down
I think
and do that.
I feel like the judges, whoever they are, need to kind of just be in charge of that. And
I guess in general, I'm hopeful for an increased role from somebody like the AFJ going forward, whether it's remote or in person. I think that it's a sport that we've said before, it's almost necessary to have in affiliate versions of qualifying events. And I think that if we can either expand their body or expand their influence in the sport, I think everybody benefits from it. I think even CrossFit benefits from it because their lack of communication in the past has always come back to bite them. Whereas if they know that AFJ is basically, they're happy with how things are communicated and the standards are clear, then they did a better job. And then they're more likely to get the fittest to the next stage.
And they take the accountability off of themselves. It's like they got to run the comp. They got to do the marketing. They got to get the sponsors. It's just like a whole big thing you could take off your plate. Yeah. And then if it doesn't go according to plan, or like, hey, we want to make a change, CrossFit can come in and say, hey, this wasn't met to our standard, and like make the change that way without having to micromanage it.
Yeah.
I feel like the process right now, so we're in the middle of the judging process. Like the videos are being reviewed. We'll know in a few days once it closes, like if someone's going to get an invite or not.
Yeah.
I feel like this has to be absolutely brutal for someone in a qualifying spot.
Oh yeah.
One, because it's public and you can see your score basically. So, I mean, our athletes out there like campaigning, like vote for me, like, yeah, come on, I need some good. Yeah, you know, and like, I just think it being public is, we're discovering this now.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, just consider the athletes too, because there's nothing they can do. They just sit there and watch it.
Yeah.
And there's no reason why. There's no indication on what needs to be reviewed. It's torturous. Also,
I just clicked there. Like almost everybody has tons of needs reviewed.
Yeah.
There's nobody who's just got like a clean everything is good.
Yeah.
So that's just a tough process to look at. And you're like, oh, what?
I can understand why they wanted to make that part at least publicly available, and almost in terms of manpower. Because what they're trying to do is they're trying to flag the ones who really should be caught, right? Really, who did something wrong, who miscounted or got the time wrong, or there was clear no reps that happened. They don't have the manpower to be able to review all of those videos that happened. So they're trying to basically crowdsource this and make sure that it happens that way. So what what might benefit from, just to help the athlete stress perspective, is to just tell them like, listen, that's not your score. That's like, if you're comfortable with what you did in terms of executing, upholding standards, showing angles, showing weights and all that good stuff, just because they're voting you down doesn't mean that your score is invalidated. It just means we're going to go take a look at it and make sure that it is up to date. So it's like a first filter to the final judgment. So even then I can understand the steps in that process as long as it actually goes that way.
Yeah, I would
we'll
say,
see.
if I could, and I don't know exactly what the system and heuristics or whatever are, but I think if you're going to crowdsource it, it should be clear on the ranking system who is upvoting and downvoting. There should be some context. So like if you click reviews, like you go to Amazon, 5-star review, 4-star review, 3-star review, 2-star review, and generally people will leave a comment. They're like, "Oh, this caviar sucked ass and made me sick." So it's a 1-star review. I mean, I don't know why
order that off Amazon.
I always order my
Tell us
caviar.
the story.
I actually did order.
I have a subscription.
Caviar off of Amazon?
Prime
Yeah, I
subscription.
did. I
On
made
Amazon
sushi
Basics.
and I needed those little orange Tobiko sushi. And I read through a lot of reviews to make sure I wasn't going to get sick. That's why it was on my head. But I think it should be something like that where you're like, okay, needs review. And then you got to put a comment like squat depth isn't good.
Yeah.
That's public. It's visible. I think everybody in that division should be the people crowdsourcing it. So you're being reviewed by your peers. And then there's some heuristics that say, hey, if you're 70% good or less, like 30% of people said you need review, it automatically red flag triggers an AFJ reviews. So then there's some sort of system and protection for some of maybe the unbiasedness. It's like, all right, well now it's literally peer reviewed. Like you're judging your own peers. We know the bias is in there, so we're not going to look at these like nitpicky, but if 20 people say it sucks and 5 people say it's good, we're automatically going to look at it.
What if there was a Reddit thread embedded? So it was like your response on why it needs review was up or down voted, and that like validated it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. That's like
Yeah,
a very
yeah, yeah.
intricate process.
It's like
but
on Amazon
kinda cool
reviews
to
where
see.
it said it's verified buyer. It's the same
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Just something.
You know how I know I have kids?
How?
Every time you move, I keep
His hand
saving
is
your
so
copy.
close
Saves
to
you,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, I keep like.
Do you want to hold it?
No. I'm like, it's a natural instinct.
I have left it like that for a while too.
All right. I mean, what are anything that you feel like we've taken away and we'll learn to do better on our end going into team and individual semis?
Man,
I feel like the process was pretty smooth. We didn't.
I
have any,
feel like, this was probably the least stressful in-person serious qualifier we've done in a long time. I feel like the team mobilized really well. Things were organized. It was lower pressure for us because I think we drew stronger boundaries. And this just general feedback, if CrossFit's listening, take it or leave it. But the up in professionalism has been great in terms of making the judging requirements and all of that tougher. But I think in practice, it actually got less people to want to do it and less people to be able to do it in their own spaces. Because we had a lot of last minute requests, which in the past were like, yeah, we want to serve everyone and we want to do a good job. This year we're like, we don't have enough judging manpower. The standards are crazy that you need, not crazy, but like you need 2 people in every video and there's space constraints and there's less time to do it and there's more tests to have to get done. I think there needs to be some work on that front to like make it a little bit easier. But I think for me, I just realized like, okay, now for the individuals, we got to be prepared and kind of keep that same level of like, almost smaller is better because it's just hard to serve a lot of people with that type of pressure and, walking in front of cameras. And even though you read everything, like there were still mistakes.
Yeah.
Like we still, had video errors and equipment errors and things that happened.
Yeah, I think in terms of getting participation up, I think you have to expect that when you make the barrier to entry more difficult to professionalize it. I don't know what the numbers were in previous years, but No Noble Mike posts like the percentage of signups from those that qualified, and it was like 50%, I guess, for most divisions, give or take some. And I don't know if it could be for a multitude of reasons. One, like the access to affiliates. 2, the access to personnel to help in the affiliates. 3, now there's accountability for actually having to have legit videos, and people are just like, well, previous years I just kind of did the workouts and threw a video in and nobody ever saw it, But now it's like, no, it's like public.
It's public,
people are voting on it, like invalidating it or needs reviewing it, whatever. So yeah,
and then also paying a registration fee to do another online
$100
competition if you don't
Yeah.
think that you're going to qualify.
yeah.
And having the two people that you ask for judges do that, or if they're not active level ones, potentially take the level ones. Like, because most people's like biggest support staff usually is like their spouse or somebody that is like not really a coach. So it's like, well, if they can't judge you now because they're not an official judge and an L1, who is going to just spend all weekend with you watching you work out?
Yeah. That's the point I was going to make. Is like I was trying to think about this from like a teenage athlete perspective, right? Like if I think about myself trying to compete at like 16, 17, I wouldn't have had this whole support network of people that could help me with this stuff. And I wonder how many of those kids are in that boat, like where it is mom and dad. Or
I'd be there, Matt.
You'd be there.
I would be there.
Be there.
In Australia, fly to
In
Australia
Australia.
for a little team, Matt.
But like, you know, it's a lot of people that you need to help you.
Damn, Mike.
Alarms, phone calls. It's a lot of people you need to help you. It's a lot of time on their end. And then like, you know, Ryan was telling me that one of his athletes is she's paid a registration. She's paid for the time of the people to help her. So it's ended up costing her like $400-500 to do all of this. And then, you know, you've obviously got your redos and trying to like get people to help you, and it becomes very difficult. So I think like it's good that it's professional, but that barrier to entry definitely pushes some people out, especially the ones that are like I don't know if I'm going to make it. You know,
What did quarterfinals cost last year?
$50.
$50. Okay. Yeah.
What was the entry for this?
$100.
100? Yeah, so they went up by 100%.
Yeah. I mean, I get, you know, in some sense, like I get it.
Yeah.
Like if you're really, like, so that we've always said in the past, like the open should be accessible. The open should be as like approachable as possible. And then if this is your semifinal stage, this is your filter to the very last championship round, it's okay. Like it's okay if it's not super accessible. It's okay if the standards are up higher.
Yeah.
I have one teenage athlete who's 16 to 17, and that was the biggest struggle, was just trying to coordinate schedules and making sure the people that were qualified to be there were able to be there on certain times, and it dictates so much, and then class times and everything else, because you had to go do it on an affiliate. So
and like if you're like the only athlete at the gym, like trying to convince the owner, like, hey, like I need some time and space, and like that's difficult.
But it's something. I mean, I get it.
Yeah. So all right. So right now, we have several athletes that are in a qualifying spot. So you know, fingers crossed, like everything keeps going well with all the video reviews, and we find out soon that they're going to the games, which is awesome.
Yeah. I have a question.
Okay.
Why did you have to wait for the password on Thursday? What's important about the fitness that wouldn't have been done if they had just opened it up on Monday?
More, everyone's going to get it, but more time to redo would be my only argument.
So what does that change?
Does that change? Is there any advantage or disadvantage for time zones? Any argument in that?
I think that there's probably a disadvantage for certain time zones, right? If you condense the competition window and the release is happening on American timelines,
It was 3 p.m. Thursday to 8 p.m. Thursday for us.
I think so.
So then that would be very late at night Europe time.
But compared to West Coast time, where they can...
I mean, no matter
West
what,
Coast
you're going
gets
to have
all
that
day,
disadvantage.
they get all day Thursday,
right?
And they get most of the day still Sunday.
Yeah.
Whereas we got all the day Sunday, but very little on Thursday. I would like, this is just more like theoretical. So they condensed the window by saying we're only going to give you the passwords on Thursday, and they're going to last until Sunday. So in my mind, what they're trying to say is we want to try and simulate an in-person competition that lasts from Thursday to Sunday, right? Instead of allowing you to have a full week to be able to test, retest, do all these things. My pushback to that would be, I feel like you can get a better measure of fitness if you let people mess around with it a little bit more.
Yeah. I would say I would want one of two formats. One format is full week, 5 workouts, and you want more global participation and make it easier for people, because that's what that does, right? Like it was definitely also challenging. Like if you did the gymnastics workout in full and you did it last, to even get a redo on it. Like I know people did it and improved on it, but it's a lot to do, especially for masters athletes, to do 90 toes to bar, 90 chest to bar, then a day later do the same thing in that level of volume. So that would be one option, which I would love. The other option that I really like, if you're trying to simulate an in-person event, is Thursday from this time to this time. That encompasses, you get event 1 and event 2, and you submit it with your video that day.
Yeah.
Then leaderboards up. and then you're simulating an actual competition, which I think engages people more and puts more of that pressure on. So I feel like one of those two directions is what I would prefer.
I like the second direction. I think they've done that in the past, though, when they had different submission windows and different passwords that associated with it. You had to submit these first. I liked that better than...
It's just hard logistically, I think.
Yeah, it's just the bigger timeline to me. I don't think that you take away from anything about the measure of fitness if you allow people to do it over 5 days. If anything, like I feel like you can spread it out, especially not to say age groupers are fragile, but if you spread it out a little bit more, you probably get a better chance of keeping them healthy throughout it and maybe having a chance to do a better redo, right? Which I like. I like the idea of that.
Could you also? I just had this thought, and shoot me down if I'm wrong. But could you also eliminate the passwords thing, but say, okay, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You're all going to get the workouts on Monday. And on Thursday at, I don't know, or let's say Friday morning. Friday morning at 7 a.m. your time, your competition window starts. And then at 8 p.m. that day, your competition window ends. You have to show us a standardized website time thing in the
some stamp
thing. And then I wonder if that, like talking about time zones, I wonder if that kind of like makes that a little bit easier for some people, because I know Europe always gets screwed.
That's what they did with the games that time.
It's good, but if your time window ends earlier, then somebody else can see the official close. So that would work, I think, if your leaderboards were condensed to the time zone. So it's like there's a European leaderboard that doesn't compete
or
against
it's like, hey, your time zone ends here, but we're going to publish the leaderboard at the end of it'd be the the West Coast time zone.
Yeah, so you get a couple more hours.
Yeah. These online qualifiers just play ping pong with my emotions.
Here's
a great idea. That idea's not good anymore. Let's go back this way. No, that doesn't work.
All right, let's go back to 5-week open.
I was picturing Linda going back to the gym at midnight or 2 a.m. in the morning to redo that workout, where she was almost victim of circumstances in terms of the time zones, but also, she decided that she wanted to do it again.
Yeah.
Brutal. Yeah. All right, so fingers crossed those athletes stay there.
Hang on. Don't pay too much attention to the voting.
You guys you got back from Mayhem Classic. Let's talk about that a little bit and the experience there and how the event was run.
So I guess second semifinal of the year if you count age group. Well, first individual semifinal of the year. Yeah, I thought it was a really well-run event. Yeah, I thought that they did a really good job with it. It was I wanted to hear more of the live stream because I was interested how it came across as well, because I think that the way that they had the floor set out, laid up, I think that the way that they had a limited number of athletes that were there, it probably made for a pretty good spectacle online too.
Yeah. I only watched online because I wasn't there, and I thought it was probably, from a semifinal standpoint, the most well-produced media thing I've ever seen, to be honest. CrossFit has done the semifinals before or the regionals before. Those are hard. And, back when they were doing it, there's multiple heats of the same workout for men, for women, and then also for teams. So you could be watching for 4 hours of just one boring team event or something like that was bottlenecked. So there was a lot production value that was really cool in this semifinal in terms of the actual videos were really done well. They had, Rich and Sean Woodland and other people commentating on it. The graphics on the screen in terms of rep counters and all of that were super dialed in. So I thought the media experience was probably as good as I've ever seen from that scale of
the
event.
Quality of it compares to the Rogue when they have the same size of fields. Everybody knows what they're looking for. Things are easy to follow for somebody who's not super familiar with the sport.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say net that side of it from a viewer fan perspective and just respect for knowing what it takes to make any media, that I was this was pretty cool. There was definitely a lot of positives to it. I'm sure you could, anything I would nitpick about in terms of media is more of commentary on our sport as a whole and trying to figure out how to just make it more viewer friendly for people who watch it that know it, but also trying to grow it outside, because I do think that we just have problems with having our sport be viewer friendly. I think it's very participation friendly, but not so great in terms of just watching a sport, right? You got to watch all weekend to watch 5 workouts, whereas like you could watch a basketball game for 2-3 hours. So I think it makes it hard for a average person to watch.
I was a fan of it of there being minimal heats and just like these are the athletes you're watching and like you're done with that event and you come back later and catch up on the next one. I thought that was nice.
Yeah,
I'm on Team Chris with that because he's always pushed for that, like just less people at these competitions.
Yeah.
I have always been on the other end of that and maybe this comes from me being an athlete and wanting to have like opportunities for people to complete where I'm like, yeah, make it 40, like let everyone compete. But after seeing this weekend, I was like, yeah, 20's nice. Like turnaround's pretty quick. You know, there's what I found was really nice was at any one time, there's 20, not even people warming up in the warm-up area. And that was, I don't think that was ever crowded.
Yeah.
Like,
Not like Wadapalooza's
at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pro event, you know, there was space.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, like I've been at Torian in past years, and you got to like physically fight someone for a barbell. You know, like it's not.
That's the difference in community events and like pro events, which I do. I mean, I like that there's when they're combined. I think it's fun, but I do think that there needs to be separation because you know it's these guys' careers and money on the line, and the rest of the people are paying to be there. So
Yeah.
What about workout selection and also number of people being so small making it to the games? Because I mean, I guess they did have a pretty decent prize purse. I mean, that prize purse was 3 times bigger than any previous regional, right? It was $15,000 to win versus most of the time it was like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it was more incentive for the athlete to compete and make money, but smaller group of people that goes to the games. So there's some really good people that just like did pretty well and are not going to the games from that, which I think is a little strange. Or like you're putting more emphasis on the online in-person semifinal than showing up in that kind of a field and competing. So there was like that. I know that's not Mayhem's fault because they're probably constrained by whatever CrossFit says, but that was definitely something kind of weird to me where I was like, hey, this is like really well produced, really cool event, really good deep field. If you perform okay here, you probably should get a spot to the games more than if you take 30th. And
the other side of that is now the names that missed out there, they're going to have to probably go somewhere else. I mean, they're going to do maybe the in-person, the online one. They might have to go do syndicate now. So it could go a long way into increasing exposure at the other events also. Whereas Mayhem might have got the exposure anyways because all the names were there.
Yeah.
Oh, that
so
makes sense.
I don't know why
it might be better for them.
I don't know why they did 2 spots versus in the past. Like it would be 5 or whatever it was last year when it was like 11 or
I mean, there's
but
20 people in that field. How many were already games athletes in previous years?
more than half.
I mean, a lot of them.
Yeah,
I think you're going to see other events too open the doors to some of those athletes that didn't make it just because of marketing. Like they're going to need to drive people there, and you know, hey, we'll make an exception. You're an invite now.
If you spread out the
sell
energy
tickets,
and the
please.
exposure and the eyes, people are going to want to watch the big names compete. So.
That already happened at I think it's called Wadland, the one in Malaga, Spain.
A few weeks, 3 weeks.
They had an online qualifier, and then they had invites, and I think something went wrong in there. So now the field is 70 athletes big.
Oh wow.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I mean that's a big change. Like if you have
The elite field.
in it, and if you had a weakness in
wow.
the past in it, or like in a 20-person field, you have a weakness. I mean, in that field with only 5 workouts, you couldn't really have a bad workout points wise. But in a field of 70, if you just
it's
like
a risk.
execute poorly on something or a weakness came out, like you're almost guaranteed not to make it now.
Yeah.
Like your leaderboard's going to be screwed
If you're trying to make top 2.
Yeah. So that'll be an interesting process.
Do you think that model of running a semifinal in a gym is something that could be duplicated throughout other gyms? We had a small talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure where the money comes from in that perspective, because I know in the past, like a lot of the times when these event hosts are trying to make money, they want butts in seats, right? Like not just the ticket sales, but also all the retail sales and all the foot traffic through vendors, or if you're somebody like Mayhem, like going through their apparel store afterwards, the more people you can get inside the doors, the better. And Mayhem as a facility was amazing. Like it was huge. There was plenty of space for things, but even in there, there was no spectator stands. And so if they had hit their full quota of 700 people or whatever it was, that's a lot of money that they bring in from ticket sales. And I feel like it would have been really rewarding. I just don't know how many other gyms are going to be able to do that and offer a spectator experience that people are going to want to go to versus if the quality of the stream was as good as you guys are saying, what's my incentive to go and watch? Right?
I mean, take like a Crash as an example, you know, like runs a similar style of event. Like it's an in-house, semifinal feel. Definitely like a known brand, but not on the same level as Mayhem by any means. So I'm just curious, like, another gym that has the space and wants to do that, like how do they monetize that?
My thought, I'll just put this idea out there into the ether, but if you do it, you got to change the business model, and it shouldn't rely on spectators. First of all, I'm not sure how like fire codes would even have allowed 700 people plus all the athletes and media people into. I mean, their thing is, I think 30,000 square feet. It's huge, but that's a lot of bodies, a lot of heat. I would say you build them closed with no spectators, or like each person gets like a 2 spectator pass or something
COVID
small.
games.
Yeah. Something smaller where you have enough energy that people could be like loud, but it's closed, no live stream, pull the cost down, only have some maybe basic media for a live stream, really make a really nice production of the competition itself, and then sell that media to sponsors where it's going to come out afterwards and tell the story. Like a Formula One, I don't know the actual like statistics, but I would never watch a Formula One race. But the second the Formula One show comes out, I'm binge watching it because it's like a story, a narrative arc, all these people. So I feel like that is really where, like as a sport, we could really make a spectator sport, because it's just so hard to try to make a good, high quality live stream that people want to watch in something digestible. Most people don't want to watch 8 hours. And I don't think like the view counts of the live stream warrant the cost of the live stream. And if that's an issue, it's going to be an issue on event organizers. Like Crash didn't do a live stream at the current one. What was the second one called? The Crescendo.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably just because that it's like
The cost of the live stream.
it's like, hey, this doesn't make money financially. Makes sense.
And I just think the
financially.
team element, it's only team. I think team is usually like a byproduct of people watching the individuals in a sense.
I would have paid to watch you, Matt.
I know you would have.
I mean, we would have paid to watch our athletes.
Yeah.
But you didn't drive out to come and watch me.
No,
Yeah.
I did not.
The pushback I would have on that is like from a fan experience is, and I saw this a little bit, is like people want to watch those athletes work out in person.
Live.
Like even I was in the warm-up area when Guy was warming up to snatch, and I was like just mesmerized, and it was like this cool thing to see, and I was like, yeah, like I just want to watch this guy lift right now. Like that's it. And it's different to being like behind a computer screen. And I was standing with Lex towards the end, and like people were coming up to her and, hey, can I have a photo? And like, so I think there's that side of it, and like cutting out the spectator experience from that standpoint, I think would potentially be like damaging. But I do, like I see it.
But there
it's like
weren't enough spectator seats to even sell out their expectations.
I mean, I do think like, so I was speaking to somebody I know that works for Hustle Up and Mayhem, and I had that complaint. I was like, man, $208 for a ticket once you pay the fees is ridiculous. For 2 days to drive out to Cookville and stand and stare at the back of someone else's head is ridiculous. And he was like, yeah, I know, but CrossFit's taking 20% of this, so that's part of why it's so high. And I'm like,
20%.
Yeah, it's huge. I said, so side tangent, Torian fills out that entire tennis center, and tickets for the weekend from memory are like $200+. If CrossFit takes 20% of that, and like I might be butchering this, but I think Torian fills out, it's like 5,000 to 8,000 people.
Well, I don't know for sure. It would depend on when these agreements were all made, though, and how long the duration. Because Torian's been a
while.
sanctioned event or whatever for a very long time, so they might have done their negotiation prior to this.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
but it just I think that they could have done a better job with the spectator experience. They had these vendors on the side, which was cool, but they could have they could have pushed them back. There was a whole area where there was other equipment. They could have pushed them back there. They could have put them off to the side. And I was telling you guys before we jumped on here, there was a set of there were 2 sets of bleachers sitting outside in the car park, and I was like, just put them inside. Give us the bleachers.
Yeah.
That I think would have just made it a better experience for spectators. Like I joked with Adam and I said, I'm going to go and buy a little fold out kitchen stool and I'm going to take it with me so I can just and put it on the floor.
There's nothing worse than coach feet. When you're at those events.
I had coach back, man.
Coach back.
Yeah,
okay.
Coach back.
Something worse than coach feet.
Oh, Coach Feet. I thought you said Coach Fee. And because Feet won the
Oh,
event.
oh, yeah.
I was like, is Feet coaching? Like, what?
Coach Pete.
Feet, yeah.
Feet
and
back.
coach
Oh,
back.
man.
Yeah, it's a long.
I
What
was
about
sold.
squirrel brain? What about the
Red ball.
yeah, workouts? What about the workout selection?
Yeah.
In all fairness, I did not because I didn't have somebody directly competing. I don't go in and dig into the time rep counts. I know the Isabel, and I watched 3 of the workouts of the 5, I think. So I saw them. But in terms of this is a sorting filter now to the games, thinking about it in the context of you had the open, which is, we've already talked about what we thought about those tests. And now these tests, does it properly capture the fittest people in there? Was it good testing? Were things missed? Did anything play out differently in person that you saw?
I'm just so confused. Sorry to jump in on those thoughts, but on how the season is laying out now, there's now some of the workouts this weekend are going to other semis and they're using them.
All right, confirmed.
Out beyond the snatch,
this
Echo,
other one.
Muscle Up
Copus
Echo, Copus is
Yeah.
using it. So yeah, and rumor is NorCal Classic's going to be doing that. So I just want clarity on if there are standardized tests. Let us know
Which ones are they?
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
And Mayhem is programming, or
At least the rumor was Mayhem supported events. That's where those tests are being used.
Oh, well, they're
No, I haven't heard
programming
that.
NorCal, right? And I think they're programming one of the ones,
They're programming Rebel Renegade games also, I think.
which is not the one in Spain. It's
No,
the
that's
one in
Africa.
That's South
Africa.
Africa.
Yeah. That'd be interesting if they were all the same. But the run loop, whatever, they're not going to get that accurate. So it's hey, if you do this and you compare it from region to region, it's not the same workout.
Maybe
You
they're
just-
going to take themes because Copasur has run 800 sandbag squats, basically 3 rounds with descending reps.
We did
It's
have
the same
that-
one as Malaga? Or is that Copa Sur's as well? Because it's 800 meter run, 30 squats, 820 squats.
I'm thinking of Wadland.
Oh, okay,
sorry.
yeah, Wadland, not Copa Sur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did have that last year with that first event at the semifinals, the run barbell cycling. But I like the programming. I think it was very reflective of Rich.
Yeah,
and
Rich's
who he is,
philosophy of training.
I was talking to Royce about this, and he was saying Rich hates cycle speed workouts that are dominated by cycle speed, and he was trying to have that show through the competition. But then you kind of had the thruster rope climb where the thruster cycle speed definitely did make a difference, but at the end of the day, if you couldn't climb the rope,
It offset
it
it.
offset it.
The first workout also
Yeah,
was
sandbag
more
squats.
dominated by cycle speed than the running was.
There's my
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah.
The cycle
argument
speed of the
back.
squatting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It made a huge difference.
Yeah.
1-2 in that, Hatfield and Mertens.
And that's
they-
also where Fee made up all the ground on Emily every round.
Yes.
I mean, I said it to
and
Kira.
the last round
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, I said it to Kira while she was out. I realized as soon as the first round finished that I was like, oh, you got to squat fast. So I ran out as she ran past. I was like, hey, you got to squat faster. Slow. You can slow down elsewhere, but you got to squat faster.
Did the
that's
burpee
it.
get up separate at all?
Yeah,
Yeah.
a little bit.
Did what was Alexis doing with her elbows?
She, when we practiced it, she was saying that to drive all the way up to a straight arm support was fatiguing on her triceps combined with the burpees. So she did that to try and take away from the tricep fatigue.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Annika sent me a video of it. She's like, "What's going on here? Is this more efficient?" I was like, "I've never seen that before in my life. I don't know."
Teach me.
I was like, "Yeah, I'll find out." So here I am
it's-
finding out.
It was fast while she was fresh. She got hit with some no reps because as she was going over the far side of the box, they had a rule that you couldn't slide on your butt across the box. So as she was flipping over, because she was on her elbows, she was rolling earlier in terms of when she was traveling
Like her
across the
butt
box.
would hit it.
So then her inside hip would catch the box on the far side of it. And that's what happens when you practice on a skinnier box than those big square ones that were there, because it paid off really well in practice when she was up at that gym. But the square box made a difference, and she got caught with some no reps on that.
Big no rep. How long did each rep take?
I mean,
They're
they're
at least
wow.
6
It was
seconds.
5 seconds when you're going fast.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. What were your thoughts on the workouts as a whole?
I thought it was a good test. I mean, you can look at the 2 male qualifiers specifically and say that they have a very specific and similar body type.
But they're also just really good.
Like, to look at what Colton has done in the WFP qualifiers, like, I feel like that man has proven that it's not really about the test anymore. It's really more about like his ability to hold himself up regardless of what's tested out there. So it can't just say like it was about squat cycle speed or being able to be little and move yourself around. Like he stood out. Austin did a great job of, grabbing as many points as possible when his strengths were being tested, and then holding up together on something like a big guy workout, which is the Echo Bike one.
I was watching Colton's like hands move on that last bike, and I was like, he's cooking. Like, for a little guy, a smaller guy.
His second bike was very fast.
Careful, Matt.
Moving.
Careful. He'll get you.
He was biking hard. I was like, that is really impressive.
Yeah. I mean, he was holding, I think, in the WFP workout row, they had the little like pace thing in his video, and he was holding like a 132 or a 136 average 500 meter pace to finish out the rowing.
I don't know. It's high.
I mean, it's just fat. It's just a fast pace to row. Which I thought was super impressive. I also thought it was really interesting. Like, it's definitely a new era of the sport, because I looked at the leaderboard and Sprague won the games last year, and there was a time I looked where he was like in 12th or something. He moved up. I forget where he finished, but he moved up. I was like, man, imagine like 10 years ago, Matt Frazier showed up to regionals after winning the games and was in like 12th. Like he won everything he showed up to, and he was like, first, third, first, like he was dominating, and Rich was winning everything he ever went into back in the day. And now we're kind of in an era where it's like, all right, well, there's like 10 people, probably girls and guys, who if you shuffle them into a competition and they show up, make random workouts, there's going to be different ones dominant. Maybe Tia, I don't know like where she's going and what she's competing in, but she's kind of been the only one. I think the only thing she lost was one competition, right? To one thing in the last 8 years, 9 years.
Road when she came back, yeah.
So that's just an interesting thing to look at. And then it like brings in the like, okay, well, do the tests matter then? Or
I don't know. I mean, I think it's good for the sport to not have somebody that just dominates everything. I think that both male and female fields are going to improve their the level of competition, because everybody's going to be hungry to continue to take those next step up, rather than just saying like, all right, we're all playing for second right now.
There's more people that believe they can win now.
So I think that'll be good for the sport, but it does also, I don't know if this is just like where we're going, if we're ever going to have as dominant of champions ever again as like Frazier and Tia were. Like, I don't know if we were just at that level of evolution inside of the sport where somebody could be that dominant. Whereas if it lasts for longer and we get some good momentum and we get good cohesion from all these different things that are happening, I'd like to think that we would get back to a place where it's like everybody's like competing for a chance to be able to go up at the top.
I think a thought I had was looking at the level of the field that was there, how talented they were. You don't see many events where there's only 5 scores like that too. Like, we're almost missing an entire day, which changes things a lot, especially like on a semifinal. You remember how much day 3 would shake things up at semifinals? Yeah. Maybe not the top 1 and 2. So you probably didn't notice it as much, but like 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh, I noticed a lot because Travis was usually right on.
I know.
That last Travis, you were in 13th on Saturday, and you freaking made it.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's one. I don't know if that was limited by them doing that in affiliate, because I know that they had events going on Friday. They had their sign-ins, everything. They had stuff on Saturday morning. So I don't know if that's maybe a reason not to have it in affiliate. But I also know that like the Granite Games competitions in the past, the Fit experience, it's important for them to be able to include the community to try and get the butts in the seats. So I'd want to have the semifinal level competition still have the ability to do 6 good tests, because I feel like that's a better way to get a good test of fitness while also trying to include all the other stuff, not at the expense of either or.
I would
that would be important.
I would agree. And I think there's ways you could do it logistically in 2 days. Like, I think you could have, if you had 5 tests, one of them could have been like a lift into a test, or a test into a lift.
More scores, you're saying.
Yeah. I think your goal with testing, especially if it's a sorting filter, to actually say this is a well-rounded test and we want to make sure that the fittest people are here, you got to make sure that there's some categories and boxes, I think, checked, which gets harder and harder to do with less tests.
Yeah. Here's a dumb idea. Every round or movement is a score through the weekend.
Oh my gosh. That would change a lot in the races.
Yes, it would.
How would you even approach that?
Full speed
the whole weekend is a checkpoint. It's just like,
I don't know. So
every second counts.
Yeah.
I mean, it was disappointing to not have Lex grab a ticket, but what I'll say is I do think that the tests were good. I don't think that there was anything in there that was like unfair or anything. I think that Fee and Abby and Emily all like they came very prepared and they crushed it all, and I think that they're very well deserving. I think that Austin and Colton, again, very well deserving. I don't think there's anything in the testing battery that necessarily favored them enough to explain why they won. I think that those guys deserve to go. So 6 tests, like maybe just because it's what we're used to, but I don't think that it necessarily takes away from anything that they did.
Yeah.
I think that for us personally.
I said 5 earlier. I meant 6. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think that for Lex, like it's disappointing, and I think that the pressure and the expectations probably didn't do any favors. But it's something where we just kind of have to be okay with the fact that we weren't as ready as we thought we were, or as ready as we should have been. So, yeah.
That happens in sport all the time.
I know. Yeah. Win some, lose some. Yeah. I feel like I think it's just more exposing too when there's only 2 spots to go because you don't look that far down normally. Whereas before it's like the top 2, they just had a flawless weekend. You know, like they had a great weekend. I mean, regardless of the events.
I don't know about the men, but on the women's side, the top 2 all had bad events. I don't know about the men's side.
The guys had a real big point gap, I feel like, by the end of it.
Like Rolf copped like an outside the top 10. Fee copped an outside the top 10. Domit had maybe a 9th. Like they were bad events for them. I don't know about the men. But
I mean, the other thing too is like you're normally at a semifinal, regional, whatever. The field's not that good. That sounded wrong. The field is not as good as compared to the 20 people that were in the Mayhem field. So I feel like it's almost even more penalizing. Like on a leaderboard in a 40-person field where, you know, there's a lot of bubble type athletes. I feel like in that field there was probably like 12 to 15 people that all could have like on any given day stepped up, executed well, and maybe made it in the top 2. Like there's people that are in 8th to 12th that are like multi-time games athletes. Yeah. So,
I mean, again, it's
interesting.
It's just, what are you trying to get out of it? I think that having only taken the top 2, maybe having some of these big name athletes go to other places now is a good thing. I think it's probably a better spectator experience to go for top 2 versus like top 11 or 13, which is like it was 2 years ago, where it's like the whole final heat's going and there's no drama.
That's crazy.
So it's just, I mean, I get it. I think it's disappointing to not be able to be inside those top 2, but it's also, I think that the tests were good. I think that they were fair tests. I think that inside of the sport, you kind of do want pressure going into that last one. Like you want to know, like there's a lot on the line that's going into it. So yeah.
Athletes are going to need to be built different now in today's day and age than before. Because in the past, the games really dominated everything. And some people would do no off-season competitions. I mean, there were multiple years where Frazier, I think, just did open regionals games and didn't do anything in the off-season. Froning, I think, did some no competitions, or like he just did the
team Wadapalooza or something.
Yeah, or what was the like U.S. versus
the Invitational?
Did the invitational type things, but no like real big like things. It was just like, hey, my whole year is about winning the CrossFit Games. That's kind of unrealistic now in today's space. Like a lot of the contractual obligations force them to go to a Wadapalooza or a couple off-season events, or, you know, if you're sponsored by Rogue, you're probably trying to go into Rogue. So, and if you're only taking 2 spots versus like top 5 from a regional and there's only one opportunity, now I think people are going to have to compete way more regularly. So you got to be prepared mentally to almost be in a, like I've been building my training cycles where I'm like, hey, you don't really get the like 8-week ramp up, compete, deload type vibe. You're like, you got to stay ready for 4 months and then deload big. And we just have to like auto regulate. Like you're not feeling good, we back off. You're feeling good, we push. And it's less about me having a long-term roadmap, because I don't really even know like when they're competing, what they're competing. If they go to something and they qualify, it changes the next month. So I feel like all of us now are starting to adapt to a new way of competing in the sport.
Yeah. I would like to think that at some point we can find some more cohesion than all of these different things trying to have their own competitions. I think it's like my biggest fear is that it's going to break the athletes down, because they're going to feel so much pressure to want to compete in so many different ways, and there's not going to be a chance to be able to take a step back, do an off-season prep where you can make your body more resilient and more bulletproof before you then, you know, really bite down and try and get back into your season. So I worry about that. I think this first year of having all of these different things going on is going to be almost like an experiment in a way. And I just hope that the people that are in charge can be very aware of like what the cost is going to be to everybody who's involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a good message to some of the organizers, where it's like, hopefully you can get on the same page with the events being 2 days long. Like, this is a qualifier for the next stage. So like, it's not intended to be the biggest stage. And I think that will save them down the line. You know, like, it's a weekend of racing, and it's not trying to be the full CrossFit Games or like the World Championship.
And I think that would be cool and better for everyone. Standards, how many total rep counts can go into these things? Like, when is it okay to make it unknown movements? When should we have known movements? What are minimum requirements? And I think, you know, you see it. You know, I've talked to Will a bunch and kind of seen his bias and perspective. We've seen Boz's perspective. We've seen Castro's perspective. We've seen Froning do the Mayhem Classic and the both Mayhem Classics that he programmed. And you start to see like, oh, everyone's got a little bit of a bias. So if we just give people free reign to write, they're going to write with their bias. I think it's going to require at some point, I don't know who does it, maybe the new owner of CrossFit or WFP. I think there needs to be a coming together to decide what are the parameters of the sport and how do we work together in this integration. Like, we want to get all the best athletes in the world at the biggest competitions. Okay, cool. Well, then let's control the total volume that they need to do at these competitions. Maybe they just come to these and do 1 day and 4 tests, and then the other day is a media day, or something that allows that kind of discussion about how do we protect the athletes so they can compete more regularly? How do we get buy-in? How do we get fan media? And right now it's like everyone working and running their own race. Yeah. And our sport's too small for that. I feel like it needs to be kind of like brought together, just more people in the discussion room. I feel like
until we get everybody into the same discussion room, you're going to see it. And I think that you're going to see it even get more involved as you go forward, because like we talked about before, when you've got all of these different independent event organizers, they don't necessarily care as much about the big picture because they don't have the incentive there. What they care about is their brand
and their event looking
They
good.
want their brand to stand out. They want their event to stand out. So that's what their focus is going to be. Their focus isn't on a big picture or a 12-year plan for a singular athlete who needs to go to all of these different things.
Yeah.
So that's why when we talk about cohesion, that's really what we're trying to push towards, is we're trying to push towards not everybody having their same thing, because I don't think that's how you push the sport forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, time will tell. We've got a lot of other events coming up, and we'll see how they kind of roll out. What's next for us? We've got camp this weekend.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Camp this
athlete
weekend.
prep camp, or athlete season camp.
Yeah. We're launching a new idea.
Yep. Oh, exciting to hear about that.
Yeah.
It's pretty fun building that. And then we've got in a few weeks team semifinals, so we'll run that back. Obviously not as many people doing that, which is going to be nice.
Yeah.
High Rocks the same weekend. We got a big Atlanta race. We've got
How
a ton
many
of people
total
going to
people
that.
do we have going to High Rocks?
I mean, here from on site, over 30 people.
Oh,
Yeah. That'll be pretty cool.
Is Travis ready yet?
Well, I gave him a little poke and I said, is Matt going to drag you through the High Rocks? And he looked at me with like scowling, burn through me eyes. And he was like, I'm fit again. No one's dragging me.
I haven't
was
done a
like,
High Rocks
I was
session
just kidding.
in weeks. I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah. I think his fitness is back where he's confident in it again.
And then following that, individual.
And affiliate.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So lots to come. We're excited.
Nice.
That's it, right?
That's it. Wrapped
All right.
up. Thank y'all for listening.